Leslie Montgomery. You are tuned into LKM Kingdom Living. Leslie's Lessons Learned. Let's get started. Well, hello, hello, hello. Greetings, everyone. Greetings to each and every one of you. We're so glad to be here with you today. Trying to do a whole lot of stuff over here and don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, glad to be here today and glad that you're able to join us. One thing about it is that we come every week, guests sometimes, and sometimes about guests, and we just want to encourage you. We want you to realize that there is a purpose in life for you. This morning, Alicia, I was watching a documentary teaching on linen and cotton and wool and how it's in the word. And as I kind of fell asleep at the end of it. And when I woke up, there was a movie on called Is Life Worth Living? And whenever I put up the mirror, that's the first thing when I look in the mirror, I say, do you look in the mirror and say, is life worth living? And as I look in there, the more I look in there, it's almost like a practice for me. And I don't see the negative, I see the beauty of who I've been created to be. So if you looked in the mirror this morning and you were wondering if life was worth living, I want you to know that life is worth living, that you were intentionally brought here, that there was a reason and a purpose, and this is your time to be here. So take a deeper look, go beyond what you think and begin to really seek out and see that you have a purpose. If you have breath in your body, and as I said last week, just take a deep breath. When you take that deep breath, your heart is pumping. You can feel the palpitations of your heart. You could just feel it's like your mind clears. Sometimes we just need to clear our mind. So just take a minute and give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. Don't look at, and I'm not saying, because when I think about it, there's some things that some people have done that can make them think that there is no forgiveness. But I want you to know that there is forgiveness for everyone. And it says, for God, for Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And the reason why he gave him because he wanted you to know that there was more to life. He wanted you to know that life is worth living, So when you begin to look at it, remember he loves you. So what was some of the first things we want to do? One of the first thing is that submit yourself. Submit yourself to him. Find out what his word says. Allow his word to filtrate those places in your life that you have less or you have no hope. He said that he came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And I thought about a few scriptures, but one was Philippians 4 and 13, and we say it all the time. I can do all things through Christ, through the Messiah who strengthens us. And as I think about that, and we just say it, there's so much strength in the word. And then I think about the scripture, and even though I know that it's talking about the Israelites, it's talking about human mankind, and it's talking about us understanding the word. And it says, so faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word. Do you know that the conditions of our heart changes by having a made up mind and hearing and understanding the word? So I want you to be encouraged today. I want you to understand that wherever you are not alone, that even in the midst of what you're going through, there is an answer. The enemy wants you to think that it's not. So, let's say what we normally say and then we'll get started. A life without me is like a world without color. You got to live. You have to live. There's things you have not done yet, because anytime you have to ask the question, is life worth living? There's something deep down on the inside of you that knows that life is worth living. So good morning to everyone. Good day to those that are joining us. We thank you for being here, and we're just so happy that you are here. And I want to say welcome to Alicia. Alicia, is a mentor. I'm gonna let her introduce what she does. But she's a mentor. She's a uh, helps change lives. That's what she does. She helps change lives. She helps us to see, and even as I say, is life worth living? She helps us to see what we need to change to understand that your life is worth living. So welcome, Alicia. Alicia, she was the first one that started out with me, and then she kicked me to the curb. I get to say it this time. She kicked me to the curb, but we're glad that you're here today with us, Alicia. And just take a moment and tell them about the 1212 community. You know, the one thing about the 1212 community, uh, I'm going to let you tell it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So good morning, everyone. I'm Alicia Johnson, the creator of the 1212 community. And to be honest, the 1212 community is a community that I wish I had when I was going through major changes in my life. And so the community has been created to support everyone who chooses to learn how to recalibrate their lives and to live 12 hours for God and 12 hours for man. The community is a support system. It's where you come every day, Monday through Friday, to garner the support that you need in order to move through life in the most powerful way, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And so it's interesting because when God gave me the assignment, I didn't want to do the assignment every day. I didn't want to do the assignment the way that God was telling me to do the assignment. But when heaven begins to reveal the purpose for your assignment, you begin to surrender and you begin to relinquish your will, not my will, but your will be done. And the reason that we do the work in the way that we do is because the world shows up every day. You're in the world every day and you need something consistent to help you to combat the power of the world. Because if you only stick to Wednesday Bible studies or Sunday church services, what about the other 5 days of the week? And so the enemy is busy every day, all day, every second. And so you need to have that same sort of balance. And so that is the reason for the 1212 community. And we approach everything spiritually, mentally, and physically. So
Yeah.
that's me in a
And, and
nutshell.
and I have to say that my life has changed tremendously, and I always talk about the helicopter mom. And the first time I heard you say that, I said, helicopter mom, what is that? And then when I found out what it was, I began to change the way that I operate. Sometimes I still get a check. They'd be like, Mom, okay. But I began to relinquish some things. And can I tell you how healthy that was for me?
Oh, great, 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 great.
you know, be, because you're trying to live their lives, your lives, trying to make sure they stay on the right road and all this stuff. And after they're grown, that is not your position, you know.
Nope.
So, I've learned that when they're children, it's a training ground. It's me teaching and training them. And then after they get older, I'm just a mentor. I'm a
Hmm.
mentor to help coach them along the way. So that's a different role altogether. So I want to say to those that are listening, and I see Sister Regina, thank you so much for joining us. Pastor Jackie, Alfreda, all those that have joined us today, I want to say thank you so much. Sister Michelle, I'm so grateful that you are here today. If you have not, could you take a moment to hit that like sign, share, and subscribe so that you would know? And Tiffany, that we are alive, that we are live, not alive. that we are
Both.
live.
We're live and live.
So, Alicia, you did a teaching. Well, it's been about 2 weeks now. Yes. And even though I was like, can you talk about this? Every day that the session has gone forth, I realize that there's a lot of areas that you can talk about containing the area that we as people need to stop minimizing ourselves, stop downplaying ourselves, thinking that everybody else is greater than we are, thinking that we don't have what it takes to do what we've been called to do. So I wanted you to come on and just talk from the aspect of it. Yeah, the topic says forgiving yourself for thinking too small. And last year we did a whole series on forgiveness, and I'm like, oh my God, forgiveness again. you know, but forgiveness is all the time. So I just wanted to you to talk from that aspect this morning to kind
Mhm.
of help us out.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So Leslie alluded to the fact that we are doing a forgiveness challenge again in the 1212 community, and it never gets old. Forgiveness never gets old. And I've learned this personally just from doing the work for so many years. I love the fact that heaven will give you the same topic over and over again, but reveal and provide new revelations each time. And so that is one level of understanding that never get bored when heaven requires you to repeat something, because
Mm.
when heaven requires you to repeat something, then heaven wants you to understand a new level of revelation. And so I can't tell you how many more times we'll do forgiveness, but as many times as heaven requires, it will be beneficial. One of the topics that we have discussed thus far in the challenge was forgiving yourself for praying too small. And this is a topic that not only affects us in the 1212, it affects people. I don't care what lot in life you have, there are more things and greater things that you can do while you are here in earth, in as Dr. Tony Evans says, like in your earth suit. And so while you are here, you have and bear a responsibility to live the greatest life that is available to you. And this is where it becomes very personal, because it is the greatest life that is available to you, not your mother, not your children, not your grandparents or whatever. This is your responsibility to hear and to understand what it is that heaven is requiring of you. And so many times we limit ourselves to the parameters that the world sets. And it's like, oh, you need to do this by this age. You need to have this by this time in life. You need to be married by this time. You need to have children by this time. And so many times, if we have missed that landmark or that parameter, we give up on it. Oh, I'm too old to do this. I'm too it's no, I missed the boat on that one. I missed this. If heaven is still pinging you, if heaven is still giving you that desire, then it is fair game. It is still available to you. And pay attention to the limits that you put on yourself. Pay attention to the limits that the world puts on you, and pay attention to the limits that other people put on you, so that you can sort through the process in a very sober way. There are some things that people want to do that you'll never be able to do, because it's not something that heaven has intended for you to do. But the things, like, there are so many, how can I put it? There are so few things that heaven probably never intended for you to do that will never make your radar, that you don't even have to worry about. But it's the things that heaven did intend for you to do that you are not doing are the problem areas. And
Mm.
so this is why it's very important for you to do the work daily, This is why it is important for you. And this, I think, for me, as far as living too small and praying too small, because of the position that I'm in and the work that I do and the variety of people that I see and the situations that I encounter, unfortunately, I see this more often than not, that people are living less than heaven has ever intended in their marriage, in their finances, in their parenting, in their career, in their everything. And you're constantly, and for me, I am constantly challenging myself. God, what more do you want from me? What more can I do? What is it that you require of me in this moment? And this is where a lot of us miss opportunities because we're thinking so far ahead. We're projecting so far out that we're missing how to be powerful in the moment that we're in. This is the only moment that really counts, because what you do right here, right now, is going to dictate what happens next. And if you're totally dismissing, and I've had so many people, and it's funny because people will dismiss you, people will overlook you, people will miss opportunities to be a part of something that is potentially great, but because your vision and your perspective is so small, you miss that opportunity.
So sometimes, yeah, this is feedback on my end, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't hear anything on my side. You're good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the mic or what, um, but hmm, I think about what you're saying, and I think about me, for example. Even I was speaking last week about how I was shaped. I was talking about shaping, and how I went through the process of my mother not liking me, hating me, trying to kill me, and then just certain things that happened. Uh, and I want to take it. I want to bring it up to when I was a first lady, and how you were talking about how people can make you feel small. And as a first lady, they used to do that. It was almost like who wore the best dress, who had the best hat, who preached the most, all these things secretly played a part with the first ladies. And it was almost like, to me, I felt like they thought I was just a little kid patting me on the back. So that also shaped me. And I remember saying I had to pray, and I had to ask Elohim. I said, please help me, because I'm about to lose my mind. And the purpose was trying to keep up with all those different areas. And I had to regroup, and I had to begin to say, look, I am who I am. And I had to begin to operate from that. If you think that I'm just cute because I don't dress like you, or I don't have a word like you, or go all over the world like you, then you just have to, because I need a sound mind. And I think about those type of things because things in our lives shaped us, growing up, coming up, and they shape us. In the process of them shaping us, sometimes we get stuck there.
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't know how to come out from there. And I think one of the things that is so powerful about the 5 a.m. call is you learn how to come out. You learn how to disconnect from those things. So I want to say hey to my sister Linda. She's on. I see she's on, and Pastor um, Daphne. I saw her, and Minister Doreen. Thank you so much for being here today. So I don't know if you were speaking from that aspect, and as you were speaking, things were coming to my mind, things that tried to eliminate my process.
Mhm.
And for a while it did, until I got grips of myself. But if it was not for me getting grips of myself, if it was not for me spending time in the Word, knowing the Word, knowing what the Father said about me, I probably would still be stuck there today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the enemy is busy. Like the enemy, we seriously,
Can I
we are.
say
Uh-huh.
some of the enemy is enemy,
Mm-hmm.
not so much the act of,
The beautiful part about it is that the the enemy is ever like the enemy is always busy, but the funny part is that the enemy is not always present. So only God is omniscient, only God is omnipresent. So the enemy does enough work to set enough doubt, uncertainty, depression, anxiety to swirl all of these things together and then just leave you to your own devices. And
yes,
so if you allow the enemy to gain a foothold, and if you allow the enemy the opportunity to really curate an experience for you, you continue to work on your own. And so this is where we have to continue to guard our hearts, our minds. This is a daily work.
it's a
This is
daily
why
work.
we do the work daily. This is why we do the work at 5 a.m. This is why we do the work seek ye first the kingdom. We do the work at 5 a.m. so that you have the opportunity to know that you have started your day properly, that you have set the course and the tone of your day. And then we do a total reset the next day. Every day you have the opportunity to start fresh and to start new. And this is where this is so and this is where I have begun to learn and I understand completely. God is not a respecter of persons. Just do the work. Do the work. Do the work, and the work will work for you. It will do what it needs to do in your life. And when you can always tell that you are doing the right thing because everything is going to fall away. This is how you can tell what kingdom you're working with. If you're working with the kingdom of light or the kingdom of darkness. The kingdom of darkness is going to make it easy in the beginning. The kingdom of darkness is going to give you everything that you need in the beginning. The kingdom of darkness is going to make it fun in the beginning. This is how I can always tell what side people are working on and whose kingdom, even though you say, I love God and I'm doing all of these things for God, but your actions, the fruit that you are bringing forth is all I need to see. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that I can't do that right now because I got too much fun to have. I got too much life to live.
Mm-hmm.
I can't let this. So that's telling me you are not serving God.
Right.
You are not serving God, even though you have like an essence of, you may speak, you may pray, you may do these things, but you are not truly killing your flesh daily. You are not honoring the assignment. And this is where so many
It's not
people,
important.
it's not important. And this is where that lukewarm concept comes in. You either need to be hot or cold. These are not the days where you can be lukewarm because the enemy will have a field day with you.
He
And this
will.
is where you have to be very firm in what you are doing spiritually, mentally, and physically. If you say you're operating spirit first, then what's the fruit of that? I rise up early. I seek God first in all of the decisions that I need to make. I seek God first in any actions that, like, there needs to be a demonstration of how this looks in your life. And
Action
that's
speaks
all I
louder
need to
than
see.
words. Action speaks louder than words.
Exactly. Especially now, especially in today's economy, because the enemy is all about show and tell. The enemy is all about the likes. likes. The enemy is all about, look at what I have. The enemy is all about this. So we have to live life in such a way that we are able to combat this the same way that the world does. And this is why it is so important that we understand our positioning.
And that's true. Yeah, that's true. And sometimes you need help. And with that help, you have to understand that that help is to help you come out of where you are. I think about some scriptures that talk about Satan. We know he was given the authority to tempt Job. We know he was given the authority. There's another scripture in First King, and Jehovah during the time of Jehoshaphat, and they were doing what they wanted to do, and Elohim was like trying to figure out how to get the attention. I forgot his name, and I need to go there. But it says that the spirit showed up and said, "I'll tempt him." And the father said, "How you going to do that?" And he says, "I'm going to put false prophets, speak through false prophets to get his attention." So there's different incidents. We see the activity of the enemy, and the only thing he comes to do is to buffet. He comes to buffet us.
And God is a creator, the enemy is a duplicator. And this is how people get confused.
Right.
There are real true prophets out here. There are true prophets out here, but because, how can I put it? Because there are so many counterfeits, that when people encounter a real prophet, they don't give that prophet the full respect that that person deserves, because the enemy has set us up with so many false prophets that look real, and it might be 90% of a lie, but 10% of the truth. And the enemy can take that 10% and make it look like 100%, and then continue to string you along. So you're missing real, true opportunities to commune with Christ. This is why, as the body of Christ, you have to live bigger. Like, living small is a disservice to the kingdom.
Yes.
Living small is diminishing the true power that is present for each and every person that is really doing the work. And so for me to know what I know, and to experience what I have experienced, and to diminish it because I don't want to stand out. I don't want people to look at me like I'm crazy. When you're operating in God's economy, God specializes in crazy. Okay? You're going to look crazy. But this is where, see, this is the thing. There are levels to surrender. You have to learn how to surrender. And a lot of times people will say they've surrendered, but you haven't truly surrendered until you have gotten to the place. And there are even levels beyond that, where if I, like it was a Saint Paul, if I live, I'm okay. If I die, I'm okay. Like, if I am delivered, I'm okay. If I'm not delivered, I'm okay. If my marriage is healed, I'm okay. If my marriage is not healed, I'm okay. I'm doing everything that I do unto God.
Yes.
However it comes out, I am okay. And that is a surrender that most people will not experience, because they're so tethered to the world and the outcomes of the world.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because I think one of the things that we learn to ask the Father to come in, but we don't actually learn how to live that life out. We think living that life out, well, I'll speak for me, was shouting, dancing, serving in the church, and I just knew I was going to get to heaven for those things. And those things, you have to go beyond that. Serving is fine, but that's not what gets you into heaven. That's not that doesn't even bring you to a place to understand who you are in the kingdom and what you are in the kingdom. That's just serving.
Mm-hmm. And
That's
honey, when God removes you from all of your ministries, that's hilarious.
I had a
God
lot
took
of them.
me, huh?
I had a lot of them.
God took me out of everything that I was doing to make myself look good before God.
Right.
And God was like, these efforts are useless. Don't serve another sandwich. Don't clean another pew. Don't put your children in another ministry. I was in timeout. God put me literally back in sandbox. In sandbox. And this is where a lot of people miss it, because you'll hear things like, God would not tell you to do that. God would not tell you to. How do you know what my relationship with God is instructing me to do? This is a person, you work out your own salvation. And heaven is going to require you to do the things that you need to do in order to get your life right, so that when heaven allows you to be reintroduced back into the church, to be reintroduced back into ministry, you are coming back powerfully so that you can rightly discern. You can rightly, how can I put it? You have the power to say what needs to be said without hesitancy. And that's a very interesting, because when God took me out and removed me and put me in sandbox, and when I come back, I'm no longer afraid. This was funny because I've had the opportunity to, share, some of the work that we do with different ministries and things like that. And for me to be able to sit there and not to be afraid when the minister comes in and to continue my teaching, that was powerful for me. Because I know that what I am saying, what God is giving me, is coming from God, because I have removed myself. I have surrendered, not my will, Lord, but your will be done. Truth takes action. Truth does what needs to be done. Truth doesn't make a whole lot of noise. And you can always tell when you're operating in 100% of the truth. Not 99%, not 98%, 100% of the truth. When you're operating 100% of the truth in whatever scenario it is, there's absolutely nothing to be said. There are no arguments to be had. There is nothing. They can argue about other things that may be surrounding that topic, but that thing right there, they can't touch it. But you're only going to understand that when you start to put the work to the test. And this is where a lot of people don't want to do it, because you're going to look crazy.
So give us an example of putting the work to the test. Let me unplug this and see if
Okay.
I still have an echo.
Oh, okay. No,
I don't know
you
what
sound
it.
fine on this side. There's no
Yeah,
echo
it's an
here.
echo
So
though. It's a big echo.
so
Only when I
putting
talk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, I don't hear anything. So putting it to the test. Oh, I have a lot of examples. So putting the work to the test. When heaven tells you to do something, when heaven gives you an instruction, that instruction 9 times out of 10 is going to oppose what you see in the natural. So heaven is giving you an instruction to move you beyond where you are. So one of the examples is, I always use, like, for example, we were going through something with our son, and in the natural, it looked impossible, because in the natural, this program, this process, in the natural, on paper, said that it took 2.5 years to get through the entire process, to even get him set up for the help that he needed. And so this is something that when you're facing obstacles like that, you're like, why even try? Why am I going to even set myself up against this Goliath? Why am I going to even set myself up against this giant? This is ridiculous. But when heaven gives you an instruction and heaven says, what did I say? This is where you have to put heaven's instruction to the test. Well, God, you said to make the phone call. Exactly. So when you make that phone call, that person on the other line has instructions to do what they need to do. So this person just following the rules says, oh, wow, it's January now. Your son will be 18 in March. Girl, I've been working here long enough to know that this ain't gonna work. I said, well, she has. I said, you've been working there a long time? Yes, and I've never seen this happen. Oh, okay. And then once again, God said, what did I say? I said, okay. I said, well, okay, I respect what you're saying, but let's go ahead and give it a try anyway. Just go and put it through. All right, whatever. See, you can always tell when the enemy is the like the undergirding, when the enemy is behind the thing, because there are a whole lot of words. A whole lot of words. Because the words in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God. Like, words form things, words create. So the enemy understands this. So if the enemy can use the words to create the scenario before you even get through it, then the enemy has won. But you also have to understand that your words have power too, especially if you're speaking the words that God has given you to speak. Not just your words, any words that you're saying, the words that God has given you. God said, put it through. So I'm saying the words that God is telling me. So she put it through. The next thing I know, I'm getting a call, new words, more words. The woman says, hey, hi, I'm such and such. I received the documentation that was put in at such and such time, and I see the date. We need to move on this now. See, the enemy, what the enemy meant for evil, what the enemy meant for your destruction, God meant for your good. God meant for it to move you ahead, not keep you behind. So it's the same scenario. It's just whose words are framing it. So this woman is saying you don't have enough time. The other person is saying we have to move in time. Like, we have to move right now to get through this window of time. God is the creator. The enemy is the duplicator. So the enemy wanted to use that same scenario, but orchestrate it differently. But see, this is when you
with Adam and Eve.
Yes. See, you have to.
You know, he was able to use the words and, like you said, form them to make them think differently.
And this is with every scenario in life. Every scenario in life. Every scenario has multiple outcomes. You have to be the curator of the experience that you want to see. This is not about manifestation. This is not about, conjuring things up. See, this is where the world is it's comical at this point. It's like you have people that are doing like open witchcraft and things that are very, how can I put it, so mainstream right now that people's spirit of discernment is at an all-time low. And this is why you have to take your time, your opportunity to position yourself daily so that you have discernment. And people will have you thinking that you have all of the power within you, that you have all of the power. I am the goddess. I am this. I am that. Honey, I am nothing without God. Okay? I am absolutely nothing. And it is in that scenario that it was God working through me. Alicia Johnson would have folded at the first conversation.
Right.
Alicia Johnson would have been like, yeah, you right. You right. You've been doing this for like 25 years. I mean, who am I? That's the thing. Who am I? But who am I with God? Who am I, when God is working through me? I'm like, I am that I am. So to make a long story short, the process went through. And our son got into the program on at 5 p.m. the day before his 18th birthday.
And it's a powerful story.
The
You know,
whole story is amazing.
it's powerful. Yeah. And every time we hear it, it's a blessing. Um, I think about, and I was just talking about Buffett, and that's something that Paul talked about with his body and things like that. But we know that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And his main object or his main purpose is to get you to worship him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and when we recognize and we come to a place that we realize who he is and what he does because we know the word, then it causes us to act different, respond differently. That's what I want to say. And we're at a place now where we, like you said, there's so many things going on, and you said discernment is at an all-time low. That's a scary thing. Uh, we do have to begin to match what we're going through with the word
Mm-hmm.
and what is said through the word. One of the things Apostle always tells us, he tells us to filter it through the word,
Mm-hmm.
find out what the word says, and that is something that is lacking, knowing the word, really
Mm-hmm.
knowing the word for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
not what somebody else says, not be, you know, because even think about it when we was coming up in church, what they was teaching us, and this is not to offend anybody, most places, what they was teaching us was not according to the word, it was according to what they knew and
Mm-hmm.
understood.
Mm-hmm. And you definitely have to take your time, the time that heaven has given you to study and to get to know God from a personal perspective. And this is why I'm constantly asking people, what is your God voice? How does God speak to you? Because once you establish what that relationship is with God, that how can I put it, amplifies your discernment, because you know that God speaks to you in a certain way. Like God speaks to me through drunk people, homeless people, numbers and words. And God is adding new languages to our relationship. But I know when certain things come at me a certain way, that this is how heaven speaks to me. And it is my responsibility. The enemy only has a few ways to speak to people. And the enemy speaks to you through your fleshly desires.
Right.
The enemy speaks to you through your greed, through your through anxiety, through envy, through depression, through all of the things that are meant to destroy you. Heaven speaks to you in ways that are meant to lift you up, to edify you, to move you to a higher place of understanding. The enemy's conversations, the enemy's language is going to diminish someone in the process. It is going to, well, don't worry about them. I mean, they going to get what they deserve anyway. Just go and do what you got to do, to each his own, do what they need, But God considers everyone. The lesson may seem to be painful for someone, but this is why you can no longer determine if a thing is good or bad. Because heaven has encoded within that whole scenario what each and every person needs. And you can tell because you can hear some people who have been through some horrific things. And they'll say something like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. You can
Yeah.
tell that's God. That's not the enemy. Because the enemy, you be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, why did this happen to me? Why did it? When God is in that thing, it's like, how how did you even come to that conclusion? And when they can go through and say, before I was like this, before God sat me down, I was like this. I thank God for this. I thank God that now I can see. But you all broke up. You all did, you looking at that person. That's how you can tell that God has done a complete work in everyone involved in the process.
And if you're doing something and you get beside yourself, he'll sit you down.
All the
You know,
time.
there's two sides. I think about years ago when I was an evangelist, and one of the things I was for the church was a forerunner. So I would go ahead before they would come in for a camp meeting, and I would go to the radio station, and I would introduce them, and my head got big, you know. And I remember the guy from the radio broadcast. He was there, and he said. He was like, "This is your year," or something like that. And I looked at him and snubbed him. And I promise you, just that quick, I was sat down.
Oh, wow.
And I began to say, "Well, what did I do? What did I do?" And he said, "You beyond yourself. You're not operating in me. You're operating in your flesh." And you were talking about, when you operate in your flesh, you begin to see things differently when you're operating, and then you begin to get a big head. You begin to think it is you, and it's not you. You are a vessel that's serving the kingdom.
And that's the last thing that the enemy wants. The enemy wants to use you like as a pawn. Like the enemy just wants to move you along just to get to get the work done. But God wants to, how can I put it? God wants to use you. Literally, God wants you to be a vessel. God wants you to be the hands, the feet, a representation of the goodness of what the kingdom has to provide. But the problem is that there's a breaking that has to happen first. And it doesn't look as sexy as what the world offers. And this is where a lot of people miss it. Because heaven delights in breaking you. And this is so powerful for me because when you pray, a lot of times as parents, you don't want to pray the hard prayers. You don't want to pray the prayers that are going to make you look bad. You don't want to pray the prayers because as a parent, you want to look like, oh, you've raised beautiful children. Oh, they're always so well mannered. And a lot of times we don't want to allow our children or let our children go because that's going to be a reflection of us. We think that they're gonna, what kind of home training did you have? But when you know that you have done everything that you can do and you truly surrender everything, you surrender the outcome, you surrender everything to God, that's when God can do the best work. And God sat me down so powerfully one day because God was giving me the prayer to pray over our son, and I didn't want to pray it. I was like, I can't pray that. I can't say that. I can't, because I understood the power of words. I said, I can't say that. I can't do that. God said, 18. See, the world gives you, and this is the thing, the world tells you everything you need to know, but are you listening?
Are you listening?
And so at 18, our son, your children are considered adults in the world's mind, So the world at that time tells you, the world lets you know we have rights now. This is no longer a child. Like the world is under our umbrella now. The child is under our umbrella now. And God sat me down so powerfully. God said, you pray this prayer now because do you want me to break your son or do you want the world to break him? I was like, oh, you all day. Because when heaven breaks you with so much love and so much compassion and so much understanding because God created you. So heaven knows exactly where you need to be broken, how deeply you need to be broken, exactly what you need. The world breaks you to destroy you. I watch so many documentaries on people, especially now with the opioid, um, fentanyl and
Pandemic.
all of those things. And just listening to, I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, if I could get to them, if they could just, God just, help them to see something different, because the world has really gotten a hold of them, and each and every person. And this is how you can tell the enemy is a duplicator. And when stories start to repeat themselves, this is how you know what their covering is. Each and every addict that they interviewed from different parts of the city, different parts of the country, each one said, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. I can't get off. I'm on a hamster wheel. I'm on a hamster wheel. And that was an indicator that this is demonic. This is evil, because the enemy doesn't have any new tactics. The enemy just reuses the same things. It may gloss it up a little bit, but the essence of it is still the same.
Yeah,
And the
that's
root to the
true.
healing is not a new drug. It's forgiveness. It's forgiveness. These people are hanging, and that's the other thing that they kept saying. And like this, the trauma that these people have experienced, the hurt that these people have experienced, the obstacles, that everything that they said, it was like, God, help them to find forgiveness. Like, help forgiveness and love. If those are the only two things that you learn in this lifetime, those two
The
tools
foundation.
found, it will move you through life. Forgiveness and love and forgiveness, they go hand in hand.
They do. And you can't have one without the other.
You
If
can
you,
try. People try. You can't truly, and this is, I've learned this over the course of time. A lot of things, a lot of times people want to go through something one time and think they have it, because this is the society that we live in. People think that you do something one time, you're going to hit it out the park, and then you just go on to the next thing. And people get so frustrated with their assignments. People get so, if your assignment is not where you think that assignment should be, then that is an indicator that you're not where that assignment needs you to be. Like, heaven is not going to allow you to move in advance, or the assignment to move in advance of where you are. And what do I mean by that?
it's true.
Heaven, if you are truly a representation of the kingdom and the kingdom work, heaven is not going to allow you to represent poorly.
No.
No matter how much you do, and this is because of the work that God required me to do. I began to understand, the deeper that you get into it, I said, I understand now why Mike and I had to do that forgiveness. Or, I understand why we had to get our marriage together. I understand. The enemy wants you to get everything first, and doesn't care if it falls down later, because the enemy wants to get paid in full in the beginning. The enemy wants all the glory, all the glitz, all the glam, all of
And
those
he's not
things,
sharing.
and not sharing, and get it all. And then once, and you hear it, it's the same scenario. People will say, I had this, I had that, but I was so depressed. I was so sad. But it looked like you had it all. That's how you can tell it's the enemy. When people start off with, it looked like you had everything. That's what the enemy wants. The enemy is the angel of light. The enemy shines light on everything, makes everything look real pretty. Have you seen, like,
He's
at
a
night?
deceiver.
Yes. At night, when you look at a city, like the night lights of the city, it looks so pretty. Like, it's so, and then when those lights go off and the sun comes up, you be like, that was a freaking alley. That was what was happening down there? And you see the news the next day, and you look at that building at night, it's like, there was a murder happening in that building. It's like, what? But the enemy can make everything that is dark pretty. And it's like it's all lit up and it's all magical and it's all this. But when the real light, the sunlight, the daylight
Come on.
arrives,
Come on.
you're able to see everything. But that artificial light from the buildings and how they can make little heart shapes with the lights and they can do all of these things. And you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. That's how the enemy works.
Yeah. He's a common copy.
Yes. But when you learn to pray bigger for yourself, your prayers are not going to be very impressive because your prayers, and I almost burned all my journals. We almost did not have this community because I was so frustrated because I was that person. I was mad with God because I would see so many people that were doing much less than God was requiring me to do. And they had the cars, they had the houses, they were going on vacation, they were doing all of these things. And I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
What? I know that I'm making more than them. I know that I'm smarter than you. Know, you start pumping yourself up. I know that, but how they doing that? And I'm sitting over here. God said, your work is different.
Mm.
And see, when you pray bigger, there are bigger expectations. I don't have that journal right here, but God said, because I had stacked all my journals up. I was getting ready to burn them. And God said, before you burn them, let's do one final walkthrough. I said, okay, because I had them stacked up. I had my marriage journal. I had my journal for my children. I was a serial journaler. I had journals for everything. And God said, well, take this one out. The biggest, the one that I always show. And God said, take this one out and get your highlighter too. And this is what it means to pray big. God said, highlight all of these words. Teach me, mold me, shape me, show me. It was just like, oh my, and I just sank back on my chair, into my chair. I was like, I asked for this. And God said, you did. And heaven does not do a half-baked job. Heaven does everything behind the scenes. God said, I'm doing, yes. And God was like, I'm doing all of these things to you and your family in the secret places so that when I release you and you are ready to go out into the world, nothing can destroy this. But see, when we're so quick to get all dressed up, to look like the church fan family, to go out and to put up this facade, you're just waiting for the shoe to drop. You're just waiting for it all to come crumbling down. But see, when you allow heaven to have its perfect way in your life in the beginning, it's going to look totally opposite than the world. This is when you should get excited.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a thorough work. But see, God is the creator of time. God is not bound by time. And so many people get caught up in the concept that I'm wasting so much time and that I got to hurry up and do it now. But don't you realize that when you slow yourself down, when you get up at 5 a.m., when you're doing the journaling work, when you're allowing heaven to complete you and to heal you and to do all of those things, baby, you may have 10 years left in this life, but God's redemption of time, those 10 years can be maximized. You can get more done in those 10 than you did in the 80 that you had before.
I love talking about Moses. Moses did more in his last 40 years than he did his entire life.
Yes, that is the redemption of time. Allow heaven. And a lot of times people don't understand what the redemption of time looks like. The redemption of time looks like whatever heaven needs it to look like in your life to maximize the blessings that have been apportioned to you for you personally. The redemption of time is personal. And when you take it personally, then you're going to do things that are unique to you and heaven. You're going to say the things that heaven needs you to say. You're going to do the things that heaven needs you to do. You're going to eliminate any outside influences because right now, between me and God, this is personal
Your perspective change.
all the time.
Yeah.
And this is where so many people wait. Redeeming the time is powerful. But when you stop wasting your time, that's as powerful as the redemption of time. That is a form of the redemption of time. And so what does it mean? And I used to laugh because I used to have I know a lot of people. I know a lot of different people, but people that would like purport themselves to be like witches and people, things like that. I'm fascinated. Honey, I love everybody. I'm just like, if God put you on this planet, then there is something to be learned. And I ask questions. My God is omniscient. My God is omnipresent. My God. So there's some weird things going on in this world where people feel like they have to do certain things to get certain things done. And so, people had like rituals and they do magic. And my question is, if God is omnipresent and God is everywhere, right? But you can only do these things on a full moon. Like you can only do these things. Like you need a chicken feather. You need this, that, and the other. What if you ain't got no chickens? Okay, so you can only do this in this climate. But what if you in the desert? Like my God is always present. My God is an ever-present help. It seems like this stuff is slowing you down. It seems like this is weird to me.
All the limitations.
Exactly. God is a creator. The enemy is a duplicator. And, people talk about like blood. There's power in the blood, like blood sacrifices and all of that. How is this person's blood any purer than Christ? You know what I'm saying? Like Jesus paid the ultimate sacrifice. There are no more sacrifices that need to be made.
Right.
And do you think I'm going to rely on your blood, knowing what you're even spewing out of your mouth? Do you make me think that it's insane? The enemy has turned so many things like upside down. It's just ridiculous. This is why you have to understand for yourself who God is. My God is omnipresent. My God is not, my God controls the entire universe. My God ain't gonna have me going out here finding one chicken feather and putting it in and all of the guys like, we need to get this done now. You don't have to wait to a full. I created the moon. You don't have to do that. This is where you have to really put your foot down and take and work out your own salvation and stop allowing other people to woo you and to distract you based on all of the things they can show you. I want the things that can't be seen. I want the joy. I want the peace that surpasses all understanding. I want to be able to enjoy the life that has been given because you know that life is fleeting. Like I want to enjoy the parts of this human experience that I won't be able to experience again once I transition. Like those are the things that I want to lay claim to.
Mm-hmm.
Not things that are going to rust and break down. Yeah, those things are helpful along the way. But like my big daddy used to say, material things are nice, but wear them loosely. So I'm done, Leslie. I know we over time.
This was good. Thank you. Well, when you're full of knowledge, this is what happens. But thank you so much for being here.
Of
I gotta
course.
check the schedule and see uh, when you're available again. But listen, everyone. I don't hope. Take what you've heard today, evaluate your life, and see what changes you need to make to line up and come in accordance with the word, come in accordance with what Elohim, which is God, has for you.
Amen.
And as you do that, you'll see things differently. Things will feel different. Things will, your environment will change. We get caught, our environment is what we make it. And a lot of these environments is not made healthy. So I want you to take a moment and just evaluate, see where you are, and make the change. Thank you for coming today, Alicia. Thank
Of
you,
course.
everyone that was here this morning. We ask that you, or afternoon, depends on where you are, morning, afternoon, or evening, take a moment and hit that like sign, share, and subscribe. We look forward to seeing you next week. Just a few notes. Minister Wanda will be back soon. The other one is that this we were supposed to have a Sunday event tonight, and that is canceled. So I just wanted to put that out there that tonight's event from head to toe will be canceled. It'll be rescheduled, but it just won't be tonight. So thank you. Have an amazing day and continue to seek his face while he may
Amen.
be found. He
Amen.
loves you and he wants the best for you. Love you.